Good morning, it's Vadim here. Today is an episode about another Engwe bike that I received. This time it's a bike, well, this is it, Engwe M1. Such a moped. In appearance, it really reminds me of a moped. In my younger years, I had a moped with a check engine from a Jawa. Damn, it looked the same. Even though it really reminds me a lot of that moped, that Ogarek. When I was assembling this bike, when it arrived to me, I was tinkering here because the seat comes separately. When I was attaching it here, it reminded me of my younger years tinkering with the carburetor, exactly in the same spot, to get this darn thing, this nuisance to run, and I really remembered my younger days. This bike made me feel a bit younger. Engwe M1. But enough of those nostalgic memories. At the beginning, two parish announcements. As usual, firstly, the material at the very beginning was marked with a badge that the material contains paid promotion. Because this bike was sent to me by the company Engwe, and probably with me it will stay. That's the first announcement. And the second, as usual, is under the video. Subscribe. If you haven't clicked there yet, I would be very grateful. Now, I'll tell you a bit about this bike. But before talking about the bike, I'll go check my water pump to see if it's working, because I'm watering my plot. Today is the 20th. On the 9th of March, it's over 20 degrees. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. It's just shocking. What is this weather today? I am watering my trees. The pump is working. Nothing happened here. It sucked in some dirt, but it doesn't harm it at all. So everything is fine. It's beautiful today, really. Such a temperature at the end of March is unusual. Okay, let's go to the bike. Let me just take a quick look. It's watering beautifully. Okay, let's go. Alright, so first a bit of technical data, and then of course we will go for a ride. Engwe M1, because that's the designation of this model. The Engel bike comes in two versions, or rather in several versions, but mainly in two basic ones. Primarily with one or two batteries. Here, as you can see, Engel sent me a bike with two batteries, which means it's more high-end. Additionally, it comes in different versions depending on the countries for which it's intended. There are so-called international versions, which you can unlock it. There are versions specifically for the European Union that cannot be unlocked, but you can purchase an additional controller for them, which, so to speak, replacing the controller and additionally having the throttle included unlocks the bike. This is sold separately. Well, this NWA is moving towards full compliance with the regulations in Poland throughout the entire European Union regarding maximum speeds and the power assistance of the bicycle. And if you want, you can do it yourself. There is a kit that you can buy, or you can simply buy the international version, which is available for sale, and then the bike does not have restrictions. That's the one I got. But step by step, what do we have here? We have a hub motor, which, according to the specification, it has 250 watts. Don't worry, it ramps up to 1000 watts. It is a hub motor in the rear wheel. It is, of course, a geared motor. We have hydraulic brakes. They are not branded in any way. Very similar to those on the Engwe L230 Boost, which I recently showed on the channel. So they are hydraulic brakes. The discs are 160, not 180, as was the case with that bike. Additionally, we also have such footrests, such pegs, because this seat is for two people. And you can carry a passenger here if you want, of course. You don't have to install it, it's additionally in the box. Option. If you want to transport I don't know, a girl, a kid, anything, you can take it on this bike. We have 20-inch wheels. The wheels are aluminum. Cast aluminum, they are not spoked. The tires are 20 by 4 inches, so typical fat bikes. However, not those off-road fat bikes. Only a typical road tire with such a nice road tread. Nice tire, very quiet above all. This bike is like the development of the M20 model. About a year ago, I showcased a very similar design, the Engwe M20, on the channel. This bike was a little bit shorter, a little more compact in construction. It was also a bit more basic in terms of equipment. There were regular cable brakes, not hydraulic brakes. I refer you to that video where I showed the Engwe M20 bike. Really very nice, enjoyable, a bit cheaper than this bike. I had a version with one battery, but you could also mount two batteries there, like in this one. Anyway, that bike had tires that were typically off-road, like such fat bikes, also 20-inch, but off-road. And this bike was very loud, like every fat bike with such off-road tires. When this bike is going, you can hear it from afar. This one is super quiet, you just can't hear the surroundings at all. The rolling resistance of these tires is very low, and it's really nice that such a little bike for the city, for cruising around the city, doesn't attract as much attention as the M20 bike, which simply, it was loud just from the rolling of those tires on the asphalt. Okay, let's move on. Here we have a very nice plastic fender. Here is the seat I mentioned. Surprisingly, this seat is very nice and comfortable. In my opinion, it's more comfortable than it was in the M20 bike. Next, we have a solid kickstand. It supports this bike and its weight. This bike weighs over 50 kilograms with those two batteries, so there's quite a bit to support. And this bike and kickstand definitely manage it. We have plastic platforms, plastic pedals. In the crank, it is mounted here on this side, you can see it. You can see the pass sensor, so there is no torque sensor here, only and exclusively the pass sensor. We have the first battery. This battery has a capacity of 13 amp hours. Above we have the second battery, which has 15.5 amp hours. So, as you can easily calculate, we have almost 29 ampere hours of electricity available here. So it should give us really large ranges. From experience, if there was just that one little battery, then we would have a range of about 40 kilometers. With this second battery, I think we'll easily reach within the limits of 90, even up to 100 kilometers of range, with my not so small weight, and additionally, of course, with the bike unlocked. If we bought a bike in the European version, the manufacturer declares approximately 170 kilometers of range. Here I'll paste exactly what the declaration is. However, this is measured at the first level of assistance and with a rider not exceeding 75 kilograms, so with someone slim, both batteries are light as a feather. If someone like that rode this bike, they could achieve such ranges. Each battery has its own key. On this side there's the smaller one, and there's a small LED. Such a diode. Probably can't see it now because it's sunny. A diode battery capacity indicator like that. The second battery also has its own switch, its own charging port and key. Both batteries can be removed and charged off the bike. Both batteries are connected in parallel. Here under the seat is a box where the controller is located. Both are connected to this controller. Connected in parallel, and they work in parallel if we turn them both on. We can turn them off separately and use, for example, only one battery. You can choose not to install the second battery at all, or have it installed, first deplete. One then the other in any configuration. So either this one first or that one first, or both at the same time. Or you can attach just one or just the other. It doesn't matter at all. Both work simultaneously at the same time or each one separately. Next, we have a shock absorber at the front here. You could say it's like a motorcycle one. I see mine came a bit scuffed. Something happened here also somewhere during transport. The package was quite battered when it arrived to me. Its travel is well like this. You can see where the oil ends. This shock absorber reaches about up to this point. It absorbs very well, although it rattles a bit, just a bit. Well, it's not a high-class shock absorber. On big bumps, at low levels, it can make a little noise. At the front, of course, a second brake, also hydraulic, also a 160 disc. The wheel tire is identical to the rear. At the front, we have a big headlight. The headlight is a bit strange. I have here now. Here you see a shot of how it shines at night. On mine it should have the lens reversed. It has the lens vertically. And in my opinion it should be like that, so it would shine wider. At the moment it seems to shine a bit like a spot, but that's how it's made. The handlebar has such a high rise. You could say it's like a BMX. In a moment I will go over it in detail. The connector for the second battery and the charging port. The front sprocket has probably 48 teeth, if I remember correctly. It could be a bit bigger. At higher speeds it wouldn't grind as much. Grinding like a hamster in a wheel. However, when the bike is locked it doesn't bother at all, and that's just the right gear ratio. At the back there's a Shimano Tourney TZ derailleur and a 7-speed freewheel. Plus we also have a damper here, a kind of rear suspension. The entire rear is on a hinge. Here we have a swing arm, so the entire rear is cushioned. With this damper, it doesn't have any adjustment options. Here I didn't find anything like that. Didn't notice it. So it's just a simple one. Simple. Just to flex, although it cushions nicely. Additionally, the seat, even though it's quite firm, still provides some cushioning. It's really nice and comfortable to ride on uneven surfaces. On the handlebars we have rubber grips. Quite hard, but comfortable. Here we have a control where at the bottom we have a horn. This horn is built into the lamp here. I honestly prefer a bell on a bicycle because pedestrians don't pay attention to it at all. But there is something like that. We have a switch for the turn signals. There is a turn signal at the back. How visible it will be while riding, I don't know. We have a hydraulic brake lever here. Of course, a brake light is built in when pressed. When you press the lever, the brake light turns on. There is also a sensor here. Next, we have a controller for operating the entire display. We have several positions here, the most important being plus and minus, which means increasing the support level and entering the menu options and turning the lights on and off, shutting down the bike. The display is colorful, it probably won't be very visible right now. I'll try to capture a shot here later in the evening. In any case, with this button, with an eye, we switch through the menu options. So we have the current distance since turning on the bike, we have total mileage of the bike, we have battery voltage, we have a voltmeter, the first Engwe bike that, well, not the first, because I think the P20 also has a voltmeter. However, here it's very accessible from the top level, the same menu level, so that's fantastic. Next, we also have an indicator of the current power the bike is generating, which is also very nice. On the left side, of course, there's a bar graph battery indicator. At the very top, the assist levels are displayed. I'm saying, well, I don't know how visible it is, but I hope somewhat. Additionally, we have a speedometer, large, nice, and readable. As for its visibility, even in this sunlight, I have no complaints. However, here the camera it catches some reflections, so it's difficult for me to show it. Next, we have the gear shifter, a very large, nice Shimano, also present in several NGW bikes. We have a throttle, this in the European version, in the version that is 100% compliant with Polish regulations. Polish and European Union regulations do not. There is this option, and this option is also available when you purchase this controller to install here, to simply replace it, as I mentioned. Then the throttle is included with the controller. The international version includes it. Second brake lever, second grip. That's briefly what it looks like in terms of technical parameters. The bike, if you buy it in such a version, is 100% compliant with Polish regulations. It will not have a throttle. It will cut speed at 25 km per hour, meaning it will stop assisting at 25 km per hour. And the power of the drive will be electronically limited by this controller to 250 watts and cannot be unlocked in any way. The controller is programmed and locked so that it cannot be done. The only option is to purchase this additional set to change it. So if someone wants to be fully compliant with the regulations, I'm buying the European version. If someone wants to be non-compliant like me, they buy the international version. The choice is yours. Alright, enough of my talking. Let's go for a ride. I'll just put something on my back. Because even though it's 21 degrees, it's only the end of March and it's still a bit chilly while riding. So I'll be back in a moment. Alright, let's ride a bit. At first we'll go on less paved roads, a bit through the forest. Let's see how this bike performs on these tires in more challenging terrain. We have a lot of sand here, uneven surfaces and things like that. And then of course we'll go where this bike feels best, which is on asphalt roads. My first impressions are really great. The bike is much more comfortable than the Engwe M1 bike. Probably because it's a bit longer, it just rides a bit better for me, at least for my height, but okay, let's go. Here in front of us we have quite a big hill, so we'll see how it handles climbs. I'll be sharing my impressions of how it rides. I currently have the second level of assistance, and we're pulling up this hill. Without much problem, without much effort. There is no pressure sensor or strain gauge here like there was in the case of the L230 Boost bike. That made climbing such a hill a bit smoother. However, there is also more mass here, right? So, the position is different too. On that bike, I was upright. Here, my legs are slightly bent. You know, right now I have my leg fully extended, look. In fact, it's that much too low. Meanwhile, the position on this bike is just different. This is a totally different bike than a classic one on a traditional frame. Here, you cruise more. It's not a bike for intense physical activity. It's just a bike, perfect for a delivery person. Oh my, these potholes were terrible. These bikes have become very popular with food delivery couriers. Glovo and other Bolt type companies, or whatever there is, those companies that deliver food. They like them because this bike is just incredibly comfortable. Even though the position isn't that natural, it's not your typical cycling posture. This position is more like being on a little moped, scooter or another small scooter. Okay, what can I say about riding in such? It is not a bike for such roads, because it is heavy, you can feel that weight. It's not super on these bumps. Here we have a very large patch of sand. Let's see how it goes through this sand. Oh ho ho! Well, on a classic fat bike, you fly through this sand. However, this road tire is not a tire for such a road. I managed to ride through, didn't fall, but it's definitely not the ideal terrain for this kind of bike. This bike is indeed for the road. From things that stand out, I don't know if you can hear them. The front suspension seems to hit something here. On some bigger bumps, you can feel some hitting from the front suspension. Probably needs some work. Maybe take it apart, try to adjust it here somehow. Maybe put rubber washers or something like that. I had a similar situation with the Joy or Way6E scooter, and there too the suspension was bottoming out very, very similarly. So I suspect that either there's something still to be fixed or tightened, or some work will be needed with some rubber washers somewhere. Because you can hear it a little, that front suspension is bottoming out a bit. When it comes to the rear suspension, it's super comfortable here. I don't feel the rear at all. This seat is really great. It is excellent compared to the seat that was in the M2. M20, it's like heaven and earth. That one was much lower, hard. It was a bit uncomfortable to ride on it. You had to keep your legs spread very wide. Here in the crotch area there is a, so to speak, narrowing. And well, it is very nice because there is absolutely no problem with pedaling this bike normally. In the EMB M20, I had a bit of a problem that my legs had to be so wide visually while pedaling. I am pedaling all the time right now, not using the throttle, riding this bike as if we had the European version blocked. And I have to say, it is really a very pleasant ride. Apart from the fact that this may not be the best road for such a big heavy bike. It would be better, it was probably like that on the asphalt. Which we will find out about in a moment, of course. Besides, nothing creaks here, nothing squeaks, nothing makes noise. No, it handles the rear really well indeed. We are going to pick up speed here on a less bumpy road, up to 25 kilometers per hour. I mean, right now I'm riding this bike as if we had the European version limited to 25 kilometers per hour. The drive cuts off at this speed. It's good that Engwe in this bike model allows buying this international version, which can be unlocked without the slightest problem or simply by purchasing an additional controller, which will allow us to unlock it if after some time of using this bicycle we decide that what the legislation offers us is a bit too little and we want a little on such private grounds in a private forest to ride a little faster. So why not? So it's a very, very big praise for the company Engwe for providing such an option. And it would be great if this option was available in all bicycles. As for the display, I have no complaints. It's really nicely visible. Surely the camera does not capture it, but as I sit here, even though there is sunlight, the display is really very visible. Once again, we are riding through such sand. I am steering with one hand, but it is manageable. Those tires, I tell you. The tires are not off-road, they are distinctly road tires, but they still manage. We will be on the road in a moment. Here it will really be able to spread its wings, and here it's a different story. This little bike rides amazingly. It's super quiet. It's nice that these tires, even though they're big fat bikes 4 inches wide, are so quiet. It's nice. Because I say those knobby off-road tires in classic fat bikes do make a lot of noise. And during longer rides it sometimes becomes bothersome. Returning to those couriers, I'm not surprised that the couriers choose bikes of this type. Like the M20, like the Engwe M1, the one I have here, or from other manufacturers. There are quite a few on the market, because this bike is very comfortable. Simply put, this bike is very comfortable, and if you're sitting in that bike saddle for 6 or 8 hours delivering food, such a bike definitely helps so that your rear doesn't hurt and your spine doesn't take a beating. Because the position I'm saying is totally different than on an ordinary bicycle. Even on a city bike, where the position is very upright, after a long ride, it still takes a toll. But on this kind of bike, it's like riding a little motorcycle or scooter. And it's definitely much more comfortable. That's why I think that couriers often choose such bikes built this way. Disadvantages. What disadvantages do I see? First of all, as I mentioned, on those large bumps, something knocks in the front suspension and you would need to check and see what's going on there. Maybe I didn't tighten something. I was riding faster and I didn't notice that something else needed fixing. So the front suspension needs to be reviewed because it is bottoming out a little. The second issue is the crankset. Well, here we have few teeth. It's, I don't know, 46 or 48 as I mentioned earlier. It would be nice if it were a 52 tooth chainring, like the one in the Engwe M1 bike that was recently on the channel. That chainring allows you to ride the bike without that hamster wheel spinning, because here, when we reach about 25 kilometers per hour, I'm going 23 right now. That's when the spinning becomes quite intense. Here we also see the hill, which I sometimes show in my videos. It's very steep. I'm riding up without the slightest problem. I have the 7th level of assistance. I'll soon switch to see how much power today's conditions give us. Controller. Well, there's a nice option to preview it here. Greetings. The controller gives us 200 watts while going uphill on this slope. So I didn't even use the power that is, so to speak, officially available. And I climbed up this hill without any problems. So it's really nice. And here on the road, the ride is a pleasure. It's really cruising with this. When riding, you don't feel the weight of the bike at all. At the same time, there's a nice stiffness, as if you were riding, well, a motorcycle really. That's the kind of feeling you get. Yet, this bike is very easy to handle. It's very nimble, and there is no problem with maneuvering. The steering angle is quite wide too, so avoiding any potholes is not a problem, or some pedestrians who might come onto the road. Here we have a huge hill again, just using the 2nd level of assistance, of course, not using any throttle. I just pedal slowly 7th gear at the back in freewheel, no problem. Damn, it rides nicely. The bike, just like other Engwe bikes, comes in a box, partially disassembled. You need to put it together a bit. The handlebars, fender and front wheel need to be attached. I think that's all, if I remember correctly, everything that needs to be assembled. So there's not much to it. The bike is shipped from a Polish warehouse. Very quickly it comes by a courier called Ambro Express. At least for me, all these bikes come by that courier. It's a courier company that deals with large-sized shipments. It is really very efficient. They have it organized very well, so if anyone is interested in purchasing. Of course, in the description below the video, I'll leave a link to this bike. There will also be a discount code there. The link is to the Polish version of the store and to a European one. So if someone prefers to pay in euros instead of zlotys, there will also be a link to the European version of the store. In the European version there is a 100 euro discount. In the Polish version there is a 440 euro discount with my code as of today, with a discount code. So I say, if someone is interested, welcome. I really like this type of bikes after testing this Engwe M1 bike. This one is better. This one is better than Engwe M1 in my opinion. Simply, it's a little longer. The position is more comfortable. It has better equipment. So we have hydraulic brakes here. We have a nicer display because there was a tiny display. Well, 2 batteries are really... You could also, of course, order the Engwe M1 with 2 batteries. I just had the version with 1 battery. For me, primarily, the position at the handlebars is more comfortable here than in the Engwe M1. Maybe because I'm a bit bigger. And of course, a pretty huge advantage are these tires. The fact that they are so quiet that you simply can't hear them when you ride. Well, of course, you can hear the engine, and this can't be avoided here because it is a gearbox, and a gearbox will always be... It will make a lot more noise than, for example, a gearless engine or an engine, whether it's the central motor. But these tires really do their job here in the city. They really feel in their natural environment. And it's very nice that such tires are also available. Preliminary. Not only these tires, typically off-road, because this bike is not for off-road. Alright, I think I will finish here. That's all I wanted to tell you about this bike. Engwe M1. I traditionally encourage you to comment. If you have any questions about this bike or any other that I have tested on my channel, of course I invite you. I'm happy to share my experience. I'm leaving the link to this bike in the video description and in the pinned comment. I also invite you to the next episode today. It will be a short episode about what this bike can do after unlocking it. However, I don't want to connect that here with the film, because as usual, experts, script researchers will speak up, who will have objections to the fact that the bike is unlocked. So, to not mix this and avoid the mess in the comments, which will definitely appear, I will make a separate episode on this subject, to which I invite you today. And today, thanks for watching and see you next time.